I never thought that after 23 years of sacrifice, my own daughter would look me in the eye and tell me I didn't matter. But that's exactly what happened on a Tuesday morning in September when I called to ask about her wedding plans. My name is Margaret Thompson, and I'm 63 years old. I've been a widow for 5 years now, ever since my husband David passed from a sudden heart attack. But the story I'm about to tell you isn't about losing my husband. It's about losing my daughter in a way I never saw coming. You see, I raised Jennifer alone from the time she was 16. David and I had always dreamed of giving her everything: the best education, the most beautiful wedding, a foundation to build her life on. When David died unexpectedly, those dreams didn't die with him. If anything, they became my entire purpose. I remember the day I made the biggest financial decision of my life. Jennifer was 17, and I was sitting in our cozy 2-bedroom house in suburban Charlotte, North Carolina, looking at college acceptance letters spread across our kitchen table. Duke University, full tuition, $52,000 a year. Even with her partial scholarship, we were looking at over $120,000 for 4 years. I had exactly 2 options: take out massive loans that would burden us both for decades, or sell our family home and use David's life insurance money to buy something smaller while investing in Jennifer's future. But I had a third idea, one that felt like the perfect solution. I'd found a beautiful beach house in the Outer Banks, about 3 hours from Charlotte. It was older, needed some work, but it sat right on the coastline with the most stunning view of the Atlantic Ocean. The asking price was $380,000, exactly what I'd get for our Charlotte house plus David's insurance money. My plan was simple: buy the beach house, rent it out during peak season to cover Jennifer's tuition, and we'd live there during the off-season. It seemed like a dream come true. "Mom, are you sure about this?" Jennifer had asked me the day we first walked through that beach house together. She was 18 then, about to start her freshman year, and she stood in the living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. "Sweetheart," I told her, wrapping my arm around her shoulders, "this house is going to pay for your education and give us something beautiful to call home. And someday, when you get married, you can have your wedding right here on the beach. Can you imagine how magical that would be?" Her eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Really, Mom? You'd let me have my wedding here?" "Jennifer, everything I do is for you, this house, your education, everything. It's all so you can have the life your father and I always dreamed of giving you." That conversation happened 5 years ago, and I've replayed it 1,000 times since. The sacrifice began immediately. Even with rental income from summer tourists, money was tight. I picked up a second job on weekends, selling jewelry at a local boutique while maintaining my full-time position as a registered nurse at Charlotte Presbyterian Hospital. 60-hour weeks became my normal. I'd drive the 3 hours to the beach house every Friday after my shift, clean and prepare it for weekend renters, then drive back Sunday night to start another week of work. But those weren't the hardest sacrifices. The hardest part was watching Jennifer's friends get financial help from their parents for spring break trips, new cars, and graduate school, while I had to say no to almost everything that wasn't absolutely essential. I wore the same 3 work uniforms for 2 years. I drove a 2009 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles and a broken air conditioner. I cut my own hair and learned to do my own manicures. Jennifer never seemed to notice these things. When she graduated summa cum laude from Duke with a degree in marketing, all she said was, "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done it without the beach house rental money." Not "thank you for working 60 hours a week." Not "thank you for giving up your retirement savings." Just acknowledgement of the house, as if it generated money by magic. After graduation, Jennifer moved to Atlanta for her job at a marketing firm. She'd visit the beach house occasionally, always bringing friends, always treating it like her personal vacation rental. She'd call me a week before, "Mom, I'm bringing 6 people down for the weekend. Can you make sure the house is stocked and clean?" I'd drive down every time, grocery shop, clean, wash linens, and have everything perfect for her arrival. She'd stay for 3 days, leave the place a mess, and drive back to Atlanta without so much as helping load the dishwasher. She's young, I'd tell myself. She's building her career. She'll understand when she's older. Then she met Michael Davis. Michael was everything I'd hoped for in a son-in-law, at least on paper. He had a good job in finance, came from a well-respected Atlanta family, and seemed to genuinely care about Jennifer. But from our first meeting, something felt off about the way he looked at our beach house. "This place must be worth a fortune now," he said during his first visit, walking through the living room with calculating eyes. "Beachfront property in the Outer Banks? You're sitting on a gold mine, Mrs. Thompson." "It's Jennifer's inheritance," I replied simply. "Everything I have is for her future." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. Jennifer's told me how generous you've been. The college tuition, this house, everything. That should have been my first warning sign." Over the next year, as Jennifer and Michael's relationship grew serious, I started planning. Not just hoping or dreaming, actively planning for their wedding. I researched local caterers, found a florist who specialized in beach ceremonies, and even put a deposit down on a wedding cake designer. I had it all mapped out in my head. Ceremony on the beach at sunset, reception on our back deck overlooking the ocean, dancing under string lights as waves crashed in the background. I spent hours on Pinterest, creating boards with ideas for centerpieces, color schemes, and decorations. I even bought a Mother of the Bride dress, a beautiful navy blue number that I found on sale at Nordstrom. I hung it in my closet and imagined the moment I'd watch my daughter walk down an aisle of sand toward the man she loved. Every conversation with Jennifer, I'd drop little hints about wedding plans. "Have you thought about what time of year you'd want to get married? Spring is beautiful here, but fall has the most gorgeous sunsets." Or, "I saw the most beautiful arch design that would look stunning against our dunes." Jennifer would always respond vaguely, "We're not in a rush, Mom. When we're ready, we'll figure it out." I interpreted that as careful planning, not secrecy. 6 months ago, Jennifer called to tell me they were engaged. Michael had proposed during a weekend trip to Napa Valley, not at our beach house, which stung a little, but I understood that couples wanted their own special moments. "I'm so happy for you, sweetheart," I said, practically bouncing in my kitchen. "Have you started thinking about dates? I know you'll want time to plan everything perfectly." "We're thinking maybe next year sometime," she said. "Nothing too big or fancy. Of course, whatever makes you happy. You know the beach house is yours whenever you want it. I've already started thinking about how beautiful a ceremony would be on our stretch of beach." There was a pause. "Mom, let's just take things one step at a time, okay?" I should have heard the distance in her voice. I should have recognized that she was pulling away, not just being cautious. But I was so excited about finally having the wedding I dreamed of that I missed every single warning sign. For the next 6 months, I continued planning in secret. I contacted the vendor I'd researched years earlier, got updated quotes, and even put deposits down on several services. I figured Jennifer was busy with her job and Michael's pressure to plan the perfect proposal. As her mother, I could handle the preliminary work and present her with options when she was ready. I planned a surprise engagement party for 50 people, all of our family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues who'd watched Jennifer grow up. I sent save-the-date cards for a celebration at the beach house. I ordered flowers, hired a caterer, and even arranged for a photographer to capture the moment when Jennifer realized how much thought and love had gone into celebrating her engagement. The party was scheduled for October 15th. I planned to call Jennifer on October 10th to invite her down for what she'd think was a regular weekend visit, then surprise her with the celebration. I never got the chance to make that call. Instead, on October 8th, I found myself sitting in my kitchen at the beach house watching seagulls dive for fish outside my window when my phone rang. Jennifer's name appeared on the screen, and my heart immediately filled with warmth. Maybe she was calling to talk about wedding plans. Maybe she was ready to start the conversation I'd been waiting for. "Hi, sweetheart," I answered, settling into my favorite chair with a cup of coffee. "I was just thinking about you." "Hey, Mom." Her voice sounded strange. distant and slightly irritated. "I need to ask you something." "Of course, honey. What's on your mind?" "When is your wedding?" I asked, assuming she was calling to finally start planning. "I know you've been thinking about it, and I have some ideas if you'd like to hear them. I've been doing a little research on vendors and—" "Mom, stop." Jennifer's voice cut through my excitement like a knife. "We already got married." The coffee mug slipped from my hands and shattered on the kitchen floor, sending hot liquid splashing across my feet, but I barely noticed. The words echoed in my head like a slap. "We already got married." "What do you mean you already got married?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "We had a small ceremony last weekend in Atlanta, just close family and friends. We only invited people who really matter." Each word hit me like a physical blow. Close family and friends. People who really matter. I was Jennifer's only living parent. I was the person who'd sacrificed everything to give her the life she had, and I didn't matter enough to even know my own daughter was getting married. "Jennifer, I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you invite me?" "Mom, don't be so dramatic. It was just a simple ceremony at Michael's parents' country club. Nothing fancy. You would have hated it anyway. You always say you don't like stuffy events." That wasn't true, and she knew it. I'd never said anything about hating formal events. In fact, I'd always told her how much I looked forward to her wedding day, how it would be one of the most important days of my life. "But Jennifer, I'm your mother. I've been planning. I've been looking forward to your wedding for years. I bought a dress. I've been researching venues and vendors. I put deposits down for a surprise engagement party this weekend with 50 people who love you." "You did what?" Her voice was sharp now, annoyed rather than apologetic. "Mom, I told you we wanted to keep things simple. You can't just plan parties without asking us first." I felt like I was drowning. Nothing she was saying made sense. When had she told me she wanted to keep things simple? When had I missed the conversation where she said she didn't want me involved in her wedding planning? "Jennifer, please help me understand. When did we talk about this? When did you decide you didn't want me at your wedding?" "Mom, you're being way too emotional about this. It's done, okay? We're married, it was beautiful, and now we just want to start our honeymoon, which is actually why I'm calling." My heart jumped. Maybe she was calling to invite me to celebrate with them. Maybe there was still a way to be part of this monumental moment in her life. "What do you need, sweetheart?" "We want a honeymoon at the beach house. Can you just send us the keys and make sure everything's stocked and ready? We're planning to drive down tomorrow morning." I sat in stunned silence. My daughter had gotten married without telling me, without inviting me, without even giving me the chance to be part of the most important day of her life. And now she was calling to ask for access to the house I'd bought with her father's life insurance money, the house I'd sacrificed everything to maintain, the house where I'd dreamed of hosting her wedding for the past 5 years. "Jennifer," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady, "I need to process this. You got married without me, and now you want to use our family home for your honeymoon?" "Mom, stop being so dramatic. Just send the keys and stop making this about you. Michael and I want to start our married life peacefully, not dealing with family drama." In the background, I could hear Michael's voice, though I couldn't make out the words. Then Jennifer spoke again, and her tone was sharp and final. "We already got married, Mom. We only invited people who really matter. Just send the beach house keys and stop being so dramatic." The line went quiet except for the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. 23 years of sacrifice. 23 years of working 60-hour weeks, driving 6 hours every weekend, saying no to every personal pleasure so I could give my daughter the life she deserved. 23 years of dreaming about walking her down an aisle, of dancing at her wedding reception, of celebrating the moment she started her own family, and I didn't matter enough to even know it was happening. I looked around my kitchen. at the engagement party invitations stacked on the counter, at the notebook where I'd written down vendor information, at the calendar where I'd marked October 15th in red ink with Jennifer's surprise party, written in my best handwriting. 50 people were expecting to celebrate my daughter's engagement in 7 days. I'd have to call every single one of them and explain that not only was there no engagement party, but there had already been a wedding that I wasn't invited to. The mother of the bride dress hanging in my closet upstairs would never be worn. The beach ceremony I'd envisioned would never happen. The moment I'd dreamed of for 5 years, watching my daughter marry the love of her life on the sand where we'd planned her future, had already happened without me. I stared at my phone, still connected to the call, still waiting for my response about the keys. For 23 years, I'd been Jennifer's mother, provider, supporter, and biggest champion. In this moment, I realized that to her, I'd never been anything more than a convenient source of resources. I just smiled, though there was no one there to see it, and hung up the phone. For the first time in 5 years, the beach house was completely silent. No renters laughing on the deck, no Jennifer calling with requests, no sound except the waves crashing against the shore and the seagulls crying overhead. I sat in that silence for 3 days. 3 days of not calling Jennifer back. 3 days of not responding to the increasingly frustrated text messages that started appearing on my phone. Mom, we need those keys. Are you seriously going to ruin our honeymoon over this? Stop being petty and just send the keys. 3 days of staring at the engagement party supplies, at the wedding research folder I'd compiled, at the framed photo of Jennifer and me taken on the day we first walked through this house together. When she was 18 and I was 58, when she hugged me and said, "Mom, this is perfect. Thank you for everything you do for me." I spent those 3 days remembering every sacrifice I'd made, every weekend I'd driven down to clean for her visits, every time I'd said yes when she called with requests and no when I wanted something for myself. On the third day, I opened my laptop and saw that Jennifer had posted photos on Instagram. Not wedding photos. I still hadn't seen a single picture of the ceremony I'd missed. Instead, she'd posted pictures from the Bahamas. Crystal blue water, pristine beaches, champagne glasses raised in celebration. The caption read, "Honeymoon bliss in paradise. So grateful for this amazing start to married life." And a blessed honeymoon newlyweds. They weren't even waiting for the beach house keys. They'd gone to the Bahamas instead, probably using money from selling the vintage jewelry I'd given Jennifer last Christmas. Pieces that had belonged to my mother and grandmother, family heirlooms I'd passed down with the story of how each piece represented love across generations. I scrolled through the comments on her post. Friends congratulating her, asking about the wedding, saying how beautiful she looked. Not one mention of her mother. Not one comment asking why I wasn't in any photos. It was like I had never existed. That's when I realized the truth that I'd been avoiding for 3 days. Jennifer didn't see me as her mother anymore. She saw me as a resource. The beach house wasn't her inheritance from a loving parent. It was just property she expected to access whenever convenient. The woman who had worked 2 jobs to pay for her education, who had given up her retirement savings to buy this house, who had spent 5 years maintaining and cleaning it for her use, didn't matter enough to be included in the most important day of her life. But I did matter enough to be expected to hand over the keys when she wanted them. As I sat in the house I'd bought with my late husband's life insurance money, surrounded by the engagement party decorations that would never be used, I finally understood that I had raised a daughter who loved what I could provide, but didn't love me. And for the first time in 23 years, I was ready to stop providing. The realization hit me like a rogue wave on the 4th morning when Mrs. Roberts knocked on my door with a casserole dish and a concerned smile. "Margaret, honey," she said, stepping into my kitchen and noticing the engagement party supplies still scattered across my counter. "I've been wondering about Jennifer's engagement party this weekend. Should I bring anything special? I'm so excited to finally meet that young man of hers." I stood there in my bathrobe, coffee cup trembling in my hands, looking at this sweet 70-year-old woman who had been our neighbor for 15 years. Mrs. Roberts had watched Jennifer grow up, had sent her graduation cards, had asked about her job and her boyfriend with genuine interest. She had been looking forward to celebrating Jennifer's engagement because she genuinely cared about our family. And I had to tell her that not only was there no engagement party, but Jennifer was already married and honeymooning in the Bahamas with money from selling family jewelry, while texting me, demanding access to the beach house she'd never even thanked me for. "Mrs. Roberts," I said slowly, setting down my coffee cup before it could slip from my shaking hands. "I need to tell you something. Jennifer got married last weekend. In Atlanta, I wasn't invited." The casserole dish nearly slipped from Mrs. Roberts' hands. "What do you mean you weren't invited? You're her mother." Apparently, they only invited people who really matter. Mrs. Roberts stared at me for a long moment, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding to something that looked like righteous anger. "Margaret Thompson, you listen to me. You are one of the most selfless, loving mothers I have ever known. You sacrificed everything for that girl. If she can't see that, then she's the one with the problem, not you." After Mrs. Roberts left, promising to help me call the other 49 party guests, I found myself standing alone in my kitchen, looking at my reflection in the window. What I saw wasn't the broken, defeated woman I'd felt like for the past 3 days. What I saw was a 63-year-old woman who had worked 2 jobs for 5 years, who had built a beautiful life by the ocean, who had raised a daughter to be independent and successful. I had done nothing wrong. I wasn't a bad mother. I wasn't dramatic or emotional or unreasonable. I was simply convenient. And I was done being convenient. I walked upstairs to my bedroom and opened the closet where I'd hung that navy blue mother of the bride dress. I took it out, held it up to myself in the mirror, and realized something profound. I looked beautiful in that dress. Not just beautiful for a mother of the bride, but beautiful as a woman who deserved to be celebrated, honored, and included in important moments. Jennifer's wedding was already over, and I couldn't change that. But I could change what happened next. I sat down at my desk and pulled out a piece of my good stationery, cream-colored paper with my initials embossed at the top. I had originally bought this stationery to write thank you notes after Jennifer's wedding reception. Instead, I was going to write something entirely different. The letter came to me as if I'd been composing it for months. "Dear Jennifer and Michael, congratulations on your marriage. I hope your new life together brings you all the happiness you deserve. Since you only invited people who really matter to your wedding, I've realized that I should focus my attention and resources on people who really matter to me as well. Effective immediately, I am donating the beach house to Harbor House Veterans Shelter. They have been looking for a retreat location where homeless veterans can find peace and healing by the ocean. After speaking with their director this morning, I realized this is exactly what your father would have wanted. Our home, helping people who sacrificed everything for their country and now need a place to rebuild their lives. The legal transfer will be complete by the time you receive this letter. I've included the keys as you requested, but they now belong to Harbor House. I'm sure you understand that this property should go to people who truly appreciate sacrifice and service. I wish you both a wonderful life together. With love, Mom." As I wrote those words, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete clarity. This wasn't revenge. Revenge would have been selling the house and keeping the money out of spite. This wasn't punishment. Punishment would have been denying them access while keeping the property for myself. This was simply a realignment of priorities. If Jennifer only wanted relationships with people who mattered to her, then I would only invest my resources in people who mattered to me. And homeless veterans who had sacrificed everything for their country mattered to me a lot more than a daughter who couldn't be bothered to invite me to her wedding. The next morning, I called Harbor House Veterans Shelter in Norfolk. I'd seen their work featured in the local newspaper several times over the years, an organization that provided temporary housing, job training, and mental health support for veterans experiencing homelessness. Harbor House, this is Director Patricia Williams speaking. Ms. Williams, my name is Margaret Thompson. I have a beach house in the Outer Banks that I'd like to donate to your organization as a retreat facility for veterans. There was a pause. Mrs. Thompson, that's incredibly generous, but I want to make sure you understand what you're offering. A property donation of that magnitude is exactly what I want to do, I interrupted. My late husband David served in Vietnam. He always said that the men and women who serve our country deserve our respect and support, especially when they come home and struggle to readjust. I can't think of a better way to honor his memory. It wasn't entirely true. David had served, but we'd never specifically discussed veteran homelessness. But it felt true in my heart. David had been a good man who believed in helping others, and I knew he would have supported this decision. Over the next 2 days, I worked with Harbor House's legal team to expedite the property transfer. I paid for rush processing, hired an attorney to handle the paperwork, and made sure everything would be legally finalized before Jennifer and Michael returned from their Bahamas honeymoon. The house was appraised at $1.2 million. Beachfront property values had skyrocketed since I'd purchased it 5 years earlier. It was enough to fund Harbor House's veteran retreat program for the next decade. On Friday morning, exactly 1 week after Jennifer's phone call, I drove to their apartment complex in Atlanta. I could have mailed the letter and keys, but I wanted to hand deliver them. I wanted to be in control of this moment instead of waiting for a reaction. I left the envelope on their doorstep with a small gift box containing the beach house keys tied with a white ribbon. Then I drove to a coffee shop across the street and waited. Michael's car pulled into the parking lot at 3:47 p.m. I watched them walk up to their apartment, Jennifer looking tan and relaxed from her Bahamas honeymoon, Michael carrying expensive-looking luggage that I was certain had been purchased with money from my grandmother's jewelry. Jennifer picked up the envelope, and I saw her face change as she read her name, written in my careful handwriting. She opened it immediately, and I watched her expression shift from curiosity to confusion to something that looked like panic. She handed the letter to Michael, and I saw his face go white as he read it. Then he opened the gift box, looked at the keys, and I heard him scream, actually scream, right there in the apartment complex parking lot. "What the hell does this mean?" His voice carried across the street. "She donated the house? She can't do that. That house was Jennifer's inheritance." Jennifer had pulled out her phone and was frantically dialing. I knew she was calling me, so I turned off my phone and continued watching. Michael was pacing now, gesticulating wildly, still holding the letter and keys. Jennifer was crying. Not gentle tears, but the kind of angry, frustrated crying that comes when you realize you've made a terrible miscalculation. They stood in that parking lot for 20 minutes, making phone calls, arguing, and probably trying to figure out if there was any legal way to reverse what I'd done. There wasn't. I'd made sure of that. Finally, they went inside their apartment, and I drove away. By the time I got home to the beach house that evening, my phone showed 47 missed calls from Jennifer and 12 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the deck, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of orange and pink. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't cleaning this house for someone else's visit. I wasn't stocking the refrigerator for Jennifer's friends or washing sheets for weekend renters. I was simply sitting in my beautiful home, enjoying the view I'd worked so hard to provide for my daughter, knowing that tomorrow it would belong to people who would truly appreciate what they'd been given. The next morning I started packing. Not everything, just the essentials I'd need for the new life I was about to begin. I'd already researched RV dealers and found a beautiful 32-foot Class A motorhome that would be perfect for the cross-country road trip I'd been dreaming about for years. I'd never traveled much. David and I had always planned to see the country when we retired, but his heart attack had stolen that dream from us. Then Jennifer's college expenses and the beach house mortgage had made travel financially impossible. But now, with the house sold and my obligations to Jennifer officially ended, I had enough money to buy an RV and travel wherever I wanted. I could visit the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, the Pacific Coast Highway, all the places I'd seen in magazines, but never thought I'd experience in person. As I packed my clothes and personal belongings, I found myself humming for the first time in months, maybe years. I felt lighter somehow, as if I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even realize was there. On Sunday morning, exactly 9 days after Jennifer's phone call, I was loading the last box into my car when another vehicle pulled into my driveway. For a moment, my heart jumped. Maybe Jennifer had come to apologize, to try to repair what she'd broken. But it wasn't Jennifer. It was a woman in her 40s wearing a Harbor House Veterans Shelter t-shirt, accompanied by a man about the same age in military fatigues. "Mrs. Thompson?" the woman called as she approached. "I'm Patricia Williams, the director we spoke with on the phone. This is Sergeant First Class James Rodriguez, one of our program coordinators." "It's wonderful to meet you both in person," I said, shaking their hands. "Mrs. Thompson," Sergeant Rodriguez said, his voice thick with emotion, "I wanted to thank you personally for this donation. I've been homeless twice since my deployment in Afghanistan ended. Places like this, places where veterans can find peace and rebuild their lives, they save lives. You're saving lives." Patricia nodded. "We've already spoken with 15 veterans who are excited about the opportunity to spend time here as part of their recovery program. The ocean has incredible therapeutic benefits for PTSD treatment." As I listened to them talk about their plans for the house, the meditation space they wanted to create in the living room, the job training workshops they could hold on the deck, the group therapy sessions that would benefit from the calming sound of waves, I realized something profound. This house was going to matter more in the next 5 years than it had in the past 5. It was going to provide healing and hope instead of just vacation memories. It was going to house people who understood sacrifice and service instead of people who took both for granted. Jennifer had been right about one thing. I should focus on people who really mattered. After Patricia and Sergeant Rodriguez left with their keys, the keys that now unlocked possibility instead of obligation, I took one final walk through the house. I touched the kitchen counter where I'd prepared so many meals for Jennifer's visits. I stood in the living room where I'd imagined her wedding reception. I looked out the window at the beach where I'd dreamed of watching her walk down an aisle toward her future. Those dreams were gone, but they'd been replaced by something better. The knowledge that this house would now be a place where people learned to hope again. I locked the door for the last time and got into my car. As I drove away, I didn't look back. Instead, I looked ahead, toward the RV dealership, toward the open road, toward a life where I mattered to myself as much as I'd always mattered to everyone else. My phone buzzed with another call from Jennifer. I glanced at the screen, smiled, and let it go to voicemail. 3 hours later, I was signing papers for a beautiful silver and blue motorhome with a full kitchen, comfortable bedroom, and panoramic windows, perfect for watching sunrises from wherever I chose to wake up. The salesman, a friendly man named Tom, helped me understand all the features and controls. "Where are you planning to travel first?" he asked as we completed the paperwork. "The Grand Canyon," I said without hesitation. "I've always wanted to see the sunrise from the South Rim." "That's going to be incredible. You picked a great time of year for it, too. October weather will be perfect for camping there." As I drove my new home away from the dealership, I felt something I hadn't experienced in decades: complete freedom. No one was depending on me. No one was expecting me to sacrifice my dreams for theirs. No one was calling to ask for keys or money or access to things I'd worked hard to provide. I was 63 years old, and for the first time in my adult life, I was living entirely for myself. That evening, I parked at a scenic overlook in the Blue Ridge Mountains and made myself dinner in my new kitchen. As I ate, I watched the sun set over the mountains and listened to the silence. Not the heavy, painful silence of the past week, but the peaceful silence of solitude chosen rather than imposed. My phone rang once more. Jennifer's name appeared on the screen, and I realized this was probably the first time in 23 years that I had the option to simply not answer my daughter's call without feeling guilty about it. I smiled, turned off the phone, and went to bed early. Tomorrow, I was driving toward the Grand Canyon and the rest of my life. In the morning, before I left the overlook, I turned my phone back on and found 17 more missed calls and 4 voicemails from Jennifer. I deleted them all without listening, then called the Veterans Shelter. Harbor House, this is Patricia. Patricia, this is Margaret Thompson. I just wanted to check in and see how the transition is going with the beach house. Margaret? You won't believe this. We already have our first veteran arriving this afternoon. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, a Marine who served 3 tours in Iraq. She's been living in her car for 6 months, and when we told her about the beach house retreat program, she cried. She said she hasn't seen the ocean since before her deployment. I closed my eyes and felt tears. Not of sadness, but of profound satisfaction. That's exactly what I hoped for. Margaret, I hope you know that your donation isn't just providing housing. It's providing hope. It's showing these veterans that there are people who understand that their service mattered. After we hung up, I stood outside my RV and looked west toward the horizon. Somewhere out there was the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, the Pacific Ocean, and hundreds of places I'd never seen. Somewhere behind me was a beach house where a Marine named Maria would see the ocean again and begin to heal. And somewhere in Atlanta was a daughter who was probably just beginning to understand the difference between being loved and being convenient. I climbed into my RV, started the engine, and drove toward the rest of my life, toward a future where I mattered to myself as much as I'd always mattered to everyone else. For the first time in 23 years, that felt like enough.